This is a NACL Comic-Cons podcast. We dive into the Comic-Con world. More than comics and cosplay, we bring you the stories of artists, authors, cosplayers, vendors, and exhibitors. We call it Comic-Con Podcast. We did not have a meeting on that name. Follow us on Facebook or hit our website, naclcomiccons.com.
And we're finally
we are here with Phil Yarbrough, local artist. Thank you for coming.
Thanks you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
What do you think of the studio? I put a lot of effort into this. I just need some feedback. Do I need to do anything? For a dank basement.
It's not dank compared to my basement. I think this is good. I think this is more than good.
This is a hutch basement right here.
This works.
Yeah, this is an older hutch basement. Well, thank you. We got Wyatt with us. We got Paulie behind the camera. Kimberly is sitting on the couch. She's monitoring our new cat that's trying to get down here. We brought Phil in just to learn a little bit about who you are, what you do. Kick us off. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up in southeast Kansas in the Independence, Parsons area.
Oh, really?
Montgomery County, Labette County. I was a little bit too different there for the more cliquish community. When I turned 18, I kind of realized, okay, I need to live in a different kind of community. I think of my childhood home, love my childhood home, love my family. I just didn't fit in down there. And so I took an opportunity to move to Washington State, central Washington, in the Wenatchee Valley, which is where basically all of the apples come from in this country. I lived there for 2 years, did a little bit of college, met all kinds of different people, all kinds of different walks of life, and it was very enriching and educational. I did end up moving back to Kansas and lived in Wichita with my dad for a couple years. Got an apartment. While I was living with my dad, I met the woman that would become my partner of soon to be 11 years.
Wow.
And I realized that Central Kansas was kind of where I needed to be.
Okay.
And I've met a lot of great people, yourselves included, in Hutchinson. I moved to Hutchinson in September of 2014 and lived in the same place ever since with my partner. She's a wonderful lady. Her family's great, and I've kind of found my home here.
That's awesome. We're on the same vein where we moved here 3 years ago from Haven, from Derby. So there's a leapfrog. Mm-hmm. And Hutch, I just like being here.
Yeah,
and
I do too.
It just feels right most days.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an odd way to put it?
No. I say it's the atmosphere of the place feels, just I don't know what the word is. It feels small townish enough to have that solid sense of your neighbor is your family. You know what I mean? But just big enough that you have the people who will push towards more exciting things like Comic Cons,
Yeah.
And so it's just that right middle ground, I feel, of the big city lifestyle with the small town community.
That's a good way to put it.
And I think that's kind of what I like about it.
It's a nice mash, and I think it's got eclectic people, eclectic businesses, all different types of viewpoints. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've really enjoyed it.
There really is a little bit of everything here. There's just enough here to, and then of course, if you're into space, you've got the cosmosphere.
Yes.
So, but as far as stuff that's not quite as expansive as the cosmosphere, there's just enough of everything to dip your feet into it and try it out and figure out what you like and what you want to do.
It's amazing how much you don't need Wichita.
Yeah.
Hutch just fills it. What do you got? Jump in here.
I got a lot of things, but I think first questions first. What is Dark Matter Universe?
Dark Matter Universe is basically my child. You think of what George Lucas said. I sold my children to Disney, is what he said about Star Wars.
I remember that quote.
I feel the same way about it. It's a combination of an analysis of not only our real world, but an exploration of creation myths from all different walks of life and end of the world myths from all different walks of life. And the story is really just about what would regular people do if they were confronted with higher beings that wanted to change their world or eradicate it. How would we respond to not necessarily an alien invasion per se, but like a divine invasion or a demonic invasion? How would we do that? It's really, in a nutshell, the Doom video games meets the X-Men.
Oh, okay. That's a great analogy. Because we met at Third Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to kind of rehash that a little bit because we talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
You were set up in front of Toy Depot, Mark's Place, best toy store in the country.
I love that place.
It is pretty
Well,
good.
you said you had the blue shirt.
I have 2 polo shirts and I have 2 warehouse shirts. Mark has bounced me around from, wherever I am needed.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where you think about, Pawn Stars, where he calls the guy that's the expert. I'm one of those guys.
You're one of the guys.
I'm one of the guys that gets called and say, we need you down here for X amount of hours, X amount of days, so you can handle this type of inventory for us. Anytime he gets, Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvel.
This is the Star Wars guy, Kim.
Yeah, that's me.
He's talked about you. See,
I'm the Star Wars guy. I'm the Star Wars guy and the superhero guy. Anytime he gets in, Marvel Legends or, Star Wars figures from regardless of era, I'm the guy that comes in, sits at the middle table and works on it and gets it priced, gets it inventoried.
Message me next time you go in.
Okay, I will.
I'll come sit with you. I love any Star Wars.
Well, I'm working. I'm not always working on Star Wars. Like last time I went in, I haven't had as much time to go out there lately as I'd like. But Mark's out for right now, so I'm just coming in the Thursdays that I have the time and kind of working on these miscellaneous action figure bins for when we moved warehouses. We brought a bunch of it back to the store. Last week was a combination of He-Man, Thundercats, Indiana Jones, and just a smidgen of Star Wars. Amazing. And so I'm like the action figure guy. Mark calls me the Star Wars guy because that's what I do the most of. But as long as it's not like I don't know much about G.I. Joe, for example. I like G.I. Joe. I'm not the expert in G.I. Joe. He's got a G.I. Joe guy. But if it's a superhero or it's a sci-fi, I'm that guy.
See, I've been buying Star Wars from him 10 years. I thought I would end up being the Star Wars guy. I didn't beat you the Star Wars. Yeah, you got me beat. So you were set up for Third Thursday. You had your table out, wind's blowing, you got your art out. And this is how I described to you before. It was so unique. I didn't understand it. It was just, where's this guy been? And why is he not going to be at our Comic-Con? And so we talked about it. It's like, hey, what, are you going to be at our Comic-Con? And you're like, no. So we're going to give you a table because you're the guy we're looking for.
Right.
That's going to bring something. It's not going to be a drawing of Harley Quinn. It's going to be a unique, original piece. And you talked about the indies out there. And Wyatt, he actually does his own drawings, and like he's off base too. He's not drawing what he sees; he's drawing what he thinks. Expand on how you got started into this, unique art.
So it goes back to discovering the independent comic book scene when I was in late elementary school, moving into middle school. I, like every kid, who likes comics, they start with Spider-Man and Batman and the X-Men. And I guess in the modern day, more the Avengers. The X-Men kind of fell off for a while, but I'm a 90s kid. So X-Men, the animated series after school, Spider-Man, the animated series. Once I was at a flea market, or I don't remember if it was a flea market or an antique store with my mom one day in southeast Kansas, I saw this book poking out of the comic book rack. And it said Cyberforce, Mark Silvestri. And I thought those characters were the coolest looking characters I have seen in a long time in comics. And I know Cyberforce isn't supposedly, it's not the greatest indie comic, but it looks really cool. You've got these mechanized superheroes. Some of them have, laser guns. Some of them have got claws. It was like the X-Men, but almost a little bit more military. And I really gravitated towards that. And then, that led to Spawn. That led to, it led to Savage Dragon. And then in the more modern day, as I'm an adult, I think of comic books like, Metal Shade or Battle Brick Road, which is like Wizard of Oz. Metal Shade's great. I don't know if you've met the people who run that. They're out of Wichita. They're local.
No, I've not met them.
They're fantastic. They put out a fantastic book. And I love the crowdfunded Kickstarter books and the Indiegogo books. That's kind of what I want to do for myself. It's really where you're getting, like what you talked about, the unique ideas that aren't your Spider-Man, aren't your Harley Quinn. There's something fresh. There's something new.
Yeah. And that's something that it even lacks with artists at Comic Cons, like we talked about. I can get a guy that can draw the Joker. There's a lot of guys that can do that. I can't find you. I mean, your stuff. So let's kick it off by just grabbing a couple pieces that you brought. Paul, be ready to check on our focus on there.
We'll start with this one underneath. Let me make sure not to drop my iPad.
Don't drop your iPad.
No, I don't want to do that. I got the hard case for a reason in case something happens to it. Let's start with this one. This is a concept art piece that I did in 2020 during lockdown.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
You can cover me up.
There we go.
I don't think
Probably
anyone
go up
could
a
cover
This
you
is-
up.
Let's go up a little bit higher. Kind of use that. Yeah, that right there.
This is
Come on, Dad. No
the
one can
core
cover you up.
characters as they were in 2020. What we have here is sort of a swirling, twirling, any way you look at it, it still makes sense with the kind of the symmetry of the main hero, Sevadama, battle ravaged and fighting for his life against this dark deity, this divine being who wants to judge his world and capture his daughter. And he's doing everything he can to protect his family.
It's amazing the depth that you have in this. It's a story in your mind that you're telling.
It's a story that's written in a word processing program. I have 6 issues scripted. I have 10 pages of comic done. The first arc is mapped out completely in script with dialogue. The rest of the story is mapped out in synopses, like story treatments. It's not scripted, but I want to get through my first 6 issues first, and then expand upon arc 2 once I get there. But the actual whole saga of the thing has a loose roadmap that is written down, and again, some of it is already ready to be put to sequential art page.
Okay. Now, you don't call her Rosie the Riveter. Pop that one up and walk us through it. Because how you described this and explained it to me, it made so much sense of what you're trying to do and tying characters not only within your universe, but outside of it.
So the concept, and I think not so much the concept, the philosophy of the Dark Matter universe is to create a universe that is much like our own. I think of the whole thing as the darkest timeline. People like to meme and say, we live in the darkest timeline. Like, we can get darker. So like all the way back to the beginning, like to the creation of the universe, even in this Dark Matter universe, even the creator of the Dark Matter universe, it's not the god that anybody worships, right? But he's a bad guy, right? He created a universe of suffering and despair.
Why are you looking at me?
And
Right in your wheelhouse.
the characters have to resist him. And anytime a world maybe gets a little bit too happy, maybe a little bit too doing their own thing, he sends in his minions, who are these dark deities and judges, to change their world or eradicate it. And so the regular people, who are just everyday people, whether they be human or maybe a little bit different. I have like blue-skinned aliens that look human, but they're blue. And the Rosie Riveter character is one of those. Her name is Veta Adama.
Let's raise that just a little bit. There we go.
Her name is Veta Adama, codename Rivet. She's the mother of the Sophia Adama character and the ex-wife of the Sev Adama character that I showed you a moment ago. She is the engineer that is basically building everything the survivors of the apocalypse need to not only survive, but rebuild. And I was very inspired not only by the idea of just the workhorse engineer, but by the idea of just a strong woman, you know, and that's the Rosie Riveter's, like, as far as modern Americana, she's the original idea in terms of the concept. And that poster was so beautiful. It's classic Americana now. And she's also kind of based off of my partner of almost 11 years now. I realized that I didn't have a character I created her in 2015. And I realized I didn't have a character that reminded me of my lady.
Really?
And so I'm like, I need to make one. So what is my partner, Kristen, what is she all about? And I just thought, strong lady, family above all, and how can I help to make the world a better place? That sums up that sums up my partner, and that sums up the Veta Adama codename Rivet character. And so when I'm creating these characters, obviously, like I mentioned, she's like Rosie Riveter. She's an engineer. She builds stuff. I try to make every single character that I do to be something that someone can latch on to. Like, as a profession or a social niche. I have, goth, punk rock characters. I've
Wholesome.
got samurai.
Let's get it going. This is awesome.
Some of these. This is Sophia Adam. This is Veda's daughter, and who's being pursued by the judges who want to capture her.
I'm going to stop you for a second. I mean, this is in a universe.
Really cool. I don't get it.
I just can't.
Profound.
I'm like I said. Once we have the books out next year, it's going to start making more sense. You'll have a point of reference. It's going to get going.
Well, but I
might
love
have
the
to get
depth
some
of
of
it.
them.
I mean, it's just awesome.
Again, like I'm a big Star Trek fan. Mm-hmm. The depth of storytelling in Star Trek is so huge and such an inspiration for me. I wanted to make a cool, kick butt visual indie comic that had the cerebral, thought process of like a Star Trek episode.
Well, so like Romulus in Gene Roddenberry's mind was a complete planet that he understood.
Yes.
This is your different planets that you understand.
Yes, it's exactly like that.
And we won't see Romulus until
down the road.
Episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
But yeah, Sophia Adama, she's my punk rock character. You see, she's got the compass tattoo on her chest, the triple moon on her abdomen. She's got, gauges in her ears. She's got the revolver, tattoos on her arms. She's very punk rock, very heavy metal. And, people who are into that love Sophia Adama.
There's that tie-in that we talked about.
And
you can find that character that fits you.
Another thing, I got another one. Plague doctors are super popular. I got a plague doctor who's a combat medic.
Producer Paulie loves the plague doctors.
Yes.
Plague doctor, cyberpunk combat medic, right? I haven't seen anybody do anything sci-fi for plague doctors.
Yeah.
I love them. I love plague doctors in D&D. I love plague doctors in D&D, but I've never seen one in the future. So I thought, why not do that?
Well, and anybody watching this is what we saw a taste of at Third Thursday. You get it. I mean, once you see it, you understand. This cat's different, and you've got something unique to offer. Keep rolling it. You got some more stuff. This is awesome.
Like at Third Thursday, it was cool. I'm just confused now.
The kids who I have stickers of this guy and his little buddy, Fox, John Trenton, the Fox, and his buddy Mike the M-Tech Bro. I like to think of Mike the M-Tech Bro,
That's good.
M-Tech as in Martian Tech, as Rocket Raccoon meets the aliens from Toy Story. So he's supposed to make you smile, So he's got all the attitude of Rocket Raccoon with the weird, oddball curiosity of the Toy Story aliens. And Fox is kind of a he's kind of a metaphor for a lot of people like myself who are realizing they're big boys now. I'm an aging millennial, and I still think I'm cool. I use terms like lit and no cap, and I really shouldn't.
you got Paul off camera. Paul's loving that.
And so, as you can see, his shirt says lit.
Yes.
He's cool with the kids. He's so cool with the kids.
Yes, he is.
But
well, I used to rap with fellas, so I'm even older than you.
He's meant to be a bit cringe.
I love the transition from the darkness,
to this ridiculous guy. I mean, it's a juxtaposition that I really enjoy because it's a tonal shift, because there is that lightheartedness to aspects of it. Because you think about in the darkest of times, you think about if you've ever met a veteran and they would tell you a story of the things they would do to cut the tension.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it would always be something, maybe we played basketball at base. Maybe we were throwing pencils at the ceiling, just anything they could do to cut the tension. And I tried to adopt that kind of attitude of, humor and anything you can do to cut the tension to deal with, an apocalyptic event that these characters, these regular people have to face, right? So over here, we have Sophia Adama's boyfriend. He's hot stuff. This is Ren. This is Ren Thanatos. He is very self-absorbed. He's kind of that anime sword guy that thinks he's just the coolest thing since sliced bread. He's an Oni. He's one of the few characters I have that actually has superpowers. He made a deal with one of the divine entities to give him power in order to avenge the passing of his parents, who uncovered some dark government secrets that they weren't supposed to know, and operatives were sent after his parents.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what happens. But he wants to avenge the passing of his parents and save them. And in the main story, he's trying to protect Sophia along with Sev from this dark entity that wants to capture her. He's doing it out of love, just like he tried to avenge his parents out of love. And so he's got the horns because he's an Oni, you know, but he also has the ability, you see, he's got this mechanized arm there that can come and go. He can shapeshift his arms into bladed implements, like the characters from the old Prototype games. If you ever played those on Xbox or... Yeah, you're an Xbox One, PS4. I'm an Xbox 360.
I had an Xbox 360.
Atari 2600.
Yeah, I know. Nobody remembers anything cool from the Xbox 360 anymore.
No.
It bums me out.
Most guys that do comics, the comic world, my understanding is you have the illustrator and you have the author. And you're obviously you're running both shows here. My
biggest inspiration in the comic book world, my little brother, now little sister, bought me a book, a graphic novel, when they went to Washington State, D.C. as a field trip in high school. They came back with a trade paperback of Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X, which is the origin story of how Wolverine got his adamantium, anti-adamantium claws and skeleton. I was enamored with that novel, and I still have it. Barry Windsor Smith is often, when that man does a comic, he's a one-man show.
Yeah.
He does so much of it himself. And the level of skill that took to do that was something that, man, I want to do that too. I want to do that too. And I often, every couple months, I pull it off the shelf and I reread it because it is just a mesmerizing book to look at.
So it's part of the inspiration. It's part of the...
It's part of the genesis of Dark Matter Universe, was realizing that if this man can do this for Marvel Comics and do it all himself, save the lettering, I don't think he has a lettering credit, but he has a credit for everything else in the book. And I may be mistaken. It's been a minute since I looked at the credit section because in my mind, Barry Windsor Smith did the whole book.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He did most of it. He did about 90% of the work. I thought, if this man can do it for Marvel Comics on a deadline, doing a bi-monthly book, issues that gets collected as a trade paperback every few years because it's just that much of a classic, then I can do it in the independent scene. I can do this myself too.
I feel like was I can't remember his first name for some reason, McFarlane. I feel like that's a big inspiration.
Todd McFarlane is an inspiration as well because he's one of those do-it-yourself men too. Yep. But his real claim to fame wasn't just the comics, because he did the toy company.
Yes.
He shook the toy company upside down because the types of toys that he wanted to make, the corporations didn't want to make. So he stuck it to the man and made his own toys. And that's kind of an inspiration too. You think about, I'm going to do this my way.
Oversized, over-detailed, realistic, with a lot of accessories.
Yes.
And now they bring a premium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We have a few of them. You buy them whenever you see them.
Yep. And that kind of thing, too, was big inspiration. I think about Jim Lee's X-Men, for example, right? I'm pretty sure that man does not collect royalties on those costume designs. I hope he does.
Yeah,
I hope he does. But they're still making cartoons with those 1990s X-Men designs. Mm-hmm. Those are the designs for the X-Men. And I think about the X-Men. I think that's the definitive X-Men. And even then, that man still went to go join Todd McFarlane at Image Comics and do Wildcats. He even the massive achievement of the X-Men books he did, the appeal of doing it yourself, your way, still seems to be very tempting for a lot of people. And it's gotten to the point where I've realized, I used to want to publish my book at Image. The dream for many years was to get an Image comic, right? Okay. Make Dark Matter Universe Salvation an Image comic. And then I started seeing the crowdfunding thing taking off, and I started hearing some stories from people who worked for Image. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I just want to crowdfund it. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Hasn't social media accessibility to crowdfunding changed all the arts?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
The labels are no longer running music. Mm-hmm. With
the streaming services
still does it. Art is the same way. I think, we talked about this, how your mindset is not a piece. It's, if I go back to the universe, I hate the analogy if it bothers you, but you've got this whole thing mapped out from conception to action figures in the store. And I love how you think in that process. So let's segue that into the figurines that you have out here? Because these are great. He is just now rolling these out. So this is prime time stuff.
These little guys are my characters come to life. I am currently prototyping Dark Matter Universe 1/24th scale and tabletop gaming scale miniatures. This is the tabletop scale miniature. This is the first one I did. My brother-in-law.
Give me up a little bit elevation.
My brother-in-law.
I've got some photographs of it too. We'll pop.
Printed this for me as a gift for my birthday because I was doing some 3D modeling in 2022 and 2023. Didn't have a 3D printer yet, but I think he wanted to get me into 3D printing, so he printed this for me. Let me use his paints, and I'm like, okay, this is my main villain, the Lord Dissolver. This is that Judge of Worlds that I was telling you about. This is him come to life, and I've got to just do this.
So how long did you stare at that after you had it?
I'd stare at it probably about 5 minutes every hour on the hour.
Yeah.
And this one sits on my shelf now, but this is the new one, and I'm going to be very careful as I lift this because it's not glued together.
Yeah, don't worry about bumping anything.
This is the 2.0 Lord Dissolver. This is how he's going to appear in the book.
That's incredible. I'll do some.
So cool. He's resin printed, modeled in Nomad Sculpt on the iPad. I plan on doing a tabletop scale version as well. This is a 50 millimeter base, 70 millimeter print. He's a 9 foot tall character, so in tabletop, he's going to take up a 10 foot square, I believe. But the model kits, for the figures are going to be 1/24th scale. And this is a 9.5 inch print in 1/24th scale. The average character, I showed you Sophia and I showed you Rivet and I showed you Ren Thanatos. Those characters who are regular people, they're going to be about 3 to 4 inches tall in a 1/24th scale. They're going to be about the size of the mini-me version to give you an idea of just what a threat and imposing presence the Lord Dissolver is. I have a prototype of Sophia at home that I'm going to have to adjust because she was just a little bit too fragile and broke. But she's only about up to, when she was standing, she was just up to where this point was.
Oh, really?
Right there. Right? And so when he floats above you, you're looking up at like a 2-story house.
Wow.
In terms of the height. And I'm hoping to have these all prototyped and available for view, and then extras in trays, cellophane wrapped, with a print and paint guide and assembly instructions for the BooCon this October that NACL is hosting.
Well, let's go ahead and hit a segue on that, and we'll take a second and listen to this awesomeness. October 26th in the Kansas State Fairgrounds. Only $5 for adults. Ages 15 and under free with an adult. Free events like zombie shootout, robot racing, ping pong ball roll. All those come with prizes. We kick off a kids costume contest at 1 p.m. Adult cosplay contest at 6 p.m. All those with cash prizes. Over 60 artists, authors, cosplayers, and vendors. Come join us at the Hutch Boo Comic Con. Follow us on Facebook, NACL Comic Cons. You are going to be at the BooCon, and what's exciting is that at the Hutch Comic Con, you brought stickers.
Yes.
Tell us about how that came about and how you developed this idea.
One thing that I have noticed is that I love our community. I love Hutchison. There's not a lot, even though there's a lot of interest in nerdy things, there's not a lot of money around there for original art. People can't always afford it. Mm-hmm. And my philosophy going into, Third Thursdays and conventions, especially locally, make something that people, regardless of their walk of life, can afford to have. I want people in the community who may be less fortunate to be able to have nice art. I really do. And so I started by doing the prints, and I did show some of those. But then I realized, kids love stickers, people love stickers. They stick them on their computers, they stick them on their laptops. I wanted to be able to offer that too. And so I did some research. Okay, what printer should I use? I looked into various companies, and the best I could find was, a minimum of 30 per design, and that would be about $20 to $25 for a run of 30 of one design. And I'm like, my biggest strength is the depth and breadth of how many characters I have. different people gravitate towards different designs. I'm going to have to spend my entire budget for stickers on 5 to 6 designs just to do that. And so I started looking in, okay, what can I do to make these myself? And I found a great quality paper stock on the internet, and it's gloss paper, and started looking into, UV sensitive inks. Couldn't find UV resistant inks, but I did find UV resistant acrylic spray.
Okay.
Right. And so I found, waterproof or water resistant, printer ink. Got a nice office printer. Started printing the stickers out on sheets with my office printer, and then I would spray each sheet with the UV acrylic matte finish so they'd have a nice texture to them, so that if somebody wants to, stick it on a device that they go to the park with, like their phone or their tablet while they watch their kids on the playground, they could do that, and it won't fade. And I also noticed that a lot of people ask me, do you make anime? And while my work is often inspired by some of the off-the-wall concepts that people have in anime, as far as art goes, I like the look of, 90s Image, like I said. I like the look of that. I like the look of, the Xbox 360, PS3 era game designs. And my philosophy for my design is, let's bring game art to comics.
Yes.
And so that's kind of been it. And so what I did was, to hear out the people that are like, do you make anime? I love anime. I love your designs, but they're not anime. I made chibi designs of many of my characters. And so this is one of my original sheets.
Hey, camera guy, what are we doing here?
This
Come on,
is
Bolly.
these are marker drawings of some of my characters. I showed some of these off. Give you an idea here. Let's get Ren up here again. So this is
okay. See,
this is the Ren Thanatos chibi. This is the Veta Adama Rosie Riveter chibi. And then we got Sev, Sophia, and Veta or Rivets. Beats is what her toolbox. Her Beats the Beetlebot. He is her toolbox and assistant in engineering. And so I actually did 19 separate chibis of all my core characters, got them printed out a little bit smaller, and cut them out, UV treated them so that they're water and fade resistant. And I'm going to tell you, for anybody who's wanting to make stickers, if you have a printer, just get a package of vinyl sticker paper off the internet and do it yourself, because it is infinitely cheaper to do it yourself. You get a quality that's very similar, and on top of that, you can do smaller runs to see what works, see what people like, and restock 5 to 10 at a time for much less than the cost of going to a print shop or something like that. Now, I do use Wayne's Printing for my prints, right? Awesome print shop, great business. All my prints for posters are done at Wayne's Printing. For my stickers, I decided to do it myself.
Okay.
And so I had about a $200 budget for my stickers. I spent half of it, and I printed 150 stickers in 24 designs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that.
No, you couldn't do that by going to a printer, you know?
So you rolled them out. What was the reception you had at the Comic-Con?
People loved them. They enjoyed, the variety. I had the cute chibis for people who like cute stuff, and I had more realistic stickers, which I brought some of those with me.
Great.
Let's see if I can get these.
What's the price point on these, Phil?
These are priced fairly, I believe. They are $3 each, or 2 for $5, and that's stacks. If you buy 10, it's $10, or if you buy 4, it's $10. Okay. If you buy 15, or if you buy $15 worth, you get 6. The only time a sticker is going to be $3 is if you buy 1. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be $2.50. Always buy in even numbers, and you'll get a deal. And
so, did that translate? Did you have
that translate to sales?
Yeah,
yes,
I like that. Yeah, we're big on the 2 for $5, aren't we? Here, we did a lot of that with minifigs and things like that.
Yeah. Especially if you got something that people can enjoy. The impulse.
We'll take some photos of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm not sure it's going to translate on camera.
See if I can find
this. Yeah, I mean, if this is on your iPad, nobody else has got it.
Yeah, that's it. Nobody. This is the 5th one, and so I did the black and white ones. Yeah, there it is. Black and white ones for older fans, and I found that I actually sold the black and white ones at a higher rate than the chibis. I did sell more chibis because I had 19 chibi designs, but the black and white ones I've had to restock a couple times now.
Really?
Yes, and again, I'm only printing 5 to 10 at a time. But I got down to 1 or 2 Sophias. This is actually my last Sophia. I need to make more of her, and that'll be the 3rd restock on her.
So this is evolving as a business also.
Yes.
And the direction obviously is we're going into figurines. 3D printing is obviously the next step. The book, you're going to be looking at doing what in the future? How are we going to get that book to market?
The book is going to get to market hopefully through crowdfunding. If the crowdfunding campaign fails, I'm going to make it anyway and make it as a webcomic.
Okay.
It just isn't, I'll make it more of, okay, the book is a hobby. The design is what I make the business, right?
Yeah.
But I'm confident that even if I don't succeed in the crowdfunding, which I'm pretty sure I'll do okay, I'll set a reasonable goal and I think I'll get it. I'm going to still offer the story up in a different way. But if you want a physical book, if you're, a classic comic collector, you want that physical book.
Yes.
Back the campaign,
Well, let me ask, and why you jump in, Kim, you guys are decision makers, and Paul, what would you think about if we used a podcast just as a vehicle to follow the process?
I'd love that.
And
I would love that.
Like a nice part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. How many parts you need?
Because I think there's so many guys out there and gals that have an idea, a concept, and they don't know what are the steps and how do I make those steps. So like owning a business, and Kim and I developed a business out of our dining room. Mm-hmm. Apple was in a garage.
Mm-hmm. Amazon was in a garage at one point too.
Yeah, I mean the great photo of Bezos sitting there with the print shop,
the wall of books in his garage.
And you think about, we have this vehicle to share information, and you can learn anything you want on the internet.
Yes, that's how I learned to sculpt in a week.
Yeah, and I think, but what's neat is that you're in the infancy. I think you're willing to talk about your failures along with your successes.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I like the sticker idea because we got to see that happen in real time, and then you've had success with it, but it wasn't you had stickers printed. That's the brilliancy of this. That's a door opened, even for us. Mm-hmm. We would like to have NACL stickers.
Yeah.
We need to look at the cost of it, and it's like, man, now we're going to have to sit down. Probably Kim's already
you can get
around.
A package of 50 sheets of 8.5 by 11 vinyl sticker paper for $30.
Yeah.
And depending on how the size of your stickers, my stickers are about this is a 3 by 4 inch bag. All of my stickers fit in a 3 by 4 inch bag. I printed 8 to 10 stickers per sheet. Right, so you buy 50 sheets. That translates to what? Almost 500 stickers for the cost of some printer ink and some paper, and your time cutting them out.
Well, and that's what we have Wyatt for. Because what else are you doing around here?
I'm the creative lead. I'm meeting the goddamn creative lead.
They what's that? Yeah, Kim has a cricket.
Well,
also.
then there you go. That's even better. If you got a cricket, there you go.
You're in business. All right, so let's. And if you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, this is not how we're supposed to do a podcast, because we're sitting here having now a discussion about how do we take this further. Mm-hmm. So here's the idea, and everybody jump in if you want to. Feel free to talk. I give you a mic.
I ain't gonna talk now.
So let's do this. And I'll map out what I'm thinking, and then you can look at it. But we defined dark matter universe in a podcast. And then every month we come in with an update of how you're progressing with this journey and sharing with it.
I would love that, because anything I can. It'd be such a privilege to be able to come in here and talk. But at the same time, I would love for it to be a vehicle for people who are just getting started. To be able to glean some insight.
Yeah.
If I can share anything I've learned on these podcasts to help people out, like we already shared the stickers.
The stickers are brilliant.
And if I can share anything that I've learned along the way, failures, successes, methodology, I would love to do that to help people out.
And I, from an entrepreneur's side, I've laid in bed thinking my business, and from its infancy to its growth to its success, failures, whatever. I'm sure you're the same way. That dominates a lot of your alone time.
There are certain things that keep me up at night about it, Usually story though, right? That's the stuff that keeps me up. The 3D printer was another thing that kind of kept me up. Getting that thing to calibrate it took a week. Here's the thing about 3D printing. If you're interested in getting into it, if you're a Star Trek fan like me, I've brought up Star Trek a few times. I'll try to stop. But
don't worry
in engineering section, the warp drive is down, and they're in the tubes, and they're calibrating some piece of machinery that's in the tubes, and it takes them 6 hours or days because they've got every little wire and every little lever and every little tiny little thing on it has to be just so, or the ship won't go. Yeah. And they're working on it, and everything's not the way it needs to be. The engineer's frustrated. That's 3D printing in a nutshell.
Yes.
Because you got to factor in so many little things. Even the temperature of the room comes into play.
Yeah.
And what I did to kind of negate some of this, and this is something I strongly recommend, get yourself some water washable resin.
Yeah.
Get the water washable because it is much less toxic. You don't have to handle high industrial grade alcohol of the isopropyl alcohol. If it gets on your fingers, God forbid your gloves break, you can wash it off in a bowl of water that you use to, clean your prints. And because like the risk of chemical burns with standard resin is very high because this stuff activates and hardens under UV light. And so if you're going outside for the ventilation to clean your resin prints like I am, I have a bowl of water or a bucket of water with a lid that I allows to sit in the sun so that the resin in the water will cure. You filter the water, then you take the water to the dump.
Okay.
Right? The water, the manufacturers say if it's filtered, then the resin is out of it. You can pour it down the drain. I'm a little bit more eco-conscious. I'm going to take my bucket of water to the dump. Yep. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to take any waste I have to the dump. You paper towels, your shop cloths, you got to put that in separate containers and dispose of it at the dump because it's a chemical hazard.
Yeah, you're talking about just that one piece. And I can tell you, now, did you do this? Kimberly and I, when we first got a resin printer, watching the print is so slow, but you're just so engaged. Mm-hmm. And it's a good 10 minutes before anything looks like anything on the LCD, which you're not gaining anything, but it's so intense. And that
the first hour or so, if you can't see under there, I got a flash. I have it in a dark section of of my office that is ventilated out the window, right? And I actually bought a printer that has a built-in air purifier, so you can't smell it when it's running.
That's great, yeah.
That's
we ran into that early on.
Yeah. That's important. I also have an air purifier that's like an actual like home air purifier in the same room. I run it when I'm prepping it, and I run it while the printer's running. You can't smell anything when it's going, and that's the way you got to have it.
That might explain Seabass. I'm just throwing it out there.
But again, I recommend the water washable resin because it's so much safer and it's so much cleaner for the environment.
We did that transition.
Yeah.
Well, we're at a point where we need to wrap this up. We're getting kind of some length in here, but this has been interesting. One, you've got a great personality. It's going to come across in the podcast and in video. The dark matter universe.
I don't get it, but it's really cool.
We'll get you to the point where everybody can get it.
That's what's amazing is
even the dummies like me.
Yeah, well, not dummies like you, but just think about it, Wyatt. That we had a kid we're going to make this longer. A kid a third Thursday stopped by our booth to show us what he bought from you.
Yeah,
unsolicited.
I know the kid you're talking about.
Unsolicited.
Anytime he comes by, he buys a printer, he buys a sticker. He has his allowance that he gets from his mom from Third Thursday, and he's bought a number of prints from me now. He rides around on his bike from vendor to vendor and just checking it out, and he always stops by where I'm at and tries to pick something up if I have anything new that he likes. And he's a great kid. He's a super nice kid.
Well, and he's totally bought in, and I'm like, what have you bought into? He's bought into the art. Mm-hmm. He can't wait for the next step. So we got to figure out how to do that because now I'm interested. So let's do this. We're going to start just a podcast series, and we're just going to take this journey with you and document it and let other people see, because not only are you going to bring something I think that's so unique. I mean, I'm getting my head around it, and then you switch gears and show me this, and it's awesome. But I think what you have to offer is beyond that for that next artist. We had a young man, 15 years old at our Comic-Con, and his goal was to make enough money to pay off his parents what he owed for his Switch, his Nintendo Switch. There's guys like that that are just sitting there that got so much ready. Let's teach them. Let's get your knowledge.
I would love to share my knowledge.
Well, this is Kendall.
Like that.
This is why.
And we've got Philip Yarbrough. Hey, we got Kimberly in the background. Got Paul on the camera occasionally, apparently. Part-time camera
We're just
guy.
on the chair right
And
now.
we had Phil Yarbrough here, which this is Dark Matter Universe. Guys, it is so deep. We're going to have to do this at least once a month, my man. Hey, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you
and
for
being
having
part
me.
of NACL.
What a wonderful opportunity to share with
Hey,
y'all. Can't wait for the next one.
NACL
Comic-Con.